Hello guys, welcome to today's stream. Today's lecture on outside the beginning moment. It's Grandmaster's choice, so I decided to pick something that I find personally very interesting, and this is I'm going to talk about King's Indian defense, namely Sämisch variation. Earlier during, I think on Sunday, I did the stream on Twitch about King's Indian ideas in King's Indian, and I was based on Kasparov's game from 1978, I believe, or 7, don't know sure. But the games were basically the main line of King's Indian. The ideas were about the main end game, the main position from the King's Indian, the main line. Today I'm gonna talk about a little bit different system, and I'm gonna talk about different let's say approach to the system, which is quite modern, and there have been very little games, but I had the occasion to play this system myself. So let's I'll try to analyze it and try to show what's happening there. So d4, knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, bishop g7, e4, d6, f3, short castle, knight g2. And this is Sämisch system. All of them very popular openings and approaches to King's Indian. I played myself as long time ago as a kid. Recently I haven't been playing it lately. I've been choosing different systems, knight f3, bishop e2, them going for the main line. But the f3, knight e2 is also very good. There are also moves like bishop e3 and bishop g5. However, here I would like to solely focus on knight g2. And because after knight g2 there is one modern basically line right now for black that has been played quite often, but it's still relatively new. So, and this line is a6, and the idea of a6, I mean, first of all, what black can play here, c5, transforming the pawn structure after d5 to Benoni from King's Indian. Second thing possible is e5, obviously, typical King's Indian stuff. There are ideas of knight c6 and a6. Let's say bishop e3 and a6 also is possible. And finally, there are also others, but I like personally a6, and this has been the recent trend, so I will just talk about this one only. And the idea of a6 is, as many people may suppose, is not knight c6 to go back to, let's say, the main line with knight c6, a6, rook b8, which I just showed earlier. But the idea is a little bit different. The idea is after bishop e3, let's say, there are also other moves, but after bishop e3, we go b5. We sacrifice a pawn. We challenge the center, we challenge the c4 pawn, we sacrifice a pawn ourselves, and we try to quickly develop some initiative and compensation for this pawn. So this is the main idea here. a6 with idea to play b5. Same thing happens after move bishop g5. And to be honest, it doesn't make much difference. I think bishop e3 is a little bit better placed because it controls better the center. Bishop g5 doesn't do much. So again, black can play b5, and we would achieve the similar positions. So I'm not going to talk about this because it's just improved version for black. And if knight g3, knight g3, however, is very good alternative, because knight g3 is sort of anticipating b5. Right now b5 would be pretty much stupid, because after cb, ab, bishop takes b5, white would have just extra pawn, and normally the idea is, as we will see in the main line, let's say bishop e3, b5 takes knight b5, c6, we are chasing knight away, and we are quickly developing, let's say, sort of some play in the center or on the queen side, and taking advantage that the white king is still only one. If knight g3, such approach is not possible, because b5, as I said, just ends up pawn down without any real compensation here. So here, black can play move h5. So the idea of h5 is right now to challenge the knight from g3, and I think this is a good approach here as black. For instance, I consider two moves here for white. Bishop d3, which is very logical, trying to, if h4, then simply go back with the knight to e2. in many instances, or bishop g5 stopping stopping h4 altogether. So after bishop g5, I think the black should play knight c6, and the problem is that knight on g3 is not really well placed right now, considering that pawn on d4 is not really defending pawn on d4. So the idea could be, let's say, it's knight h7 or something like this. Queen d2, for instance, knight h7, as I said, bishop e3, and black can play, for instance, bishop d7. There are also other moves, but this is one of possible moves. Also possible would be e5. However, we don't have to rush with it because it's not clear how white will develop. Bishop d3 is not possible, and the point is, why not e5? That after e5, d5, knight d4, white would have moved knight to e2, challenging this knight on d4. And this is what black doesn't really want. That's why we play bishop d7. And the idea that after bishop e2 we can then play e5 and d5 and then have the very strong knight on d4, which cannot be easily challenged with knight d2 and very quickly with knight d2. Okay, so this is the kind of main idea. And after d5 we can play knight d5, and it's not clear what white does next, because f4 is always met by knight g4, and if, let's say, bishop e2, we can continue challenging the queen side of b5. So here's again why a6 is useful and why a6 had been played a few moves earlier. Hello guys, hello, I cannot pronounce that, but hello Leon speaks, Spinks. So yeah, b5 is very strong right now, and this is kind of like typical in sort of Benko style, Benko gambit style position. We can always consider playing h4, h3. There are lots of possibilities to play here, you know, as black. So this knight, so this is what happens after the bishop g5. Let's see what happens after bishop d3, because this seems to be more natural way of developing piece, especially after h4. You can simply go back knight d2 and then castle the king side. Hello chess king. Hello GGRR. Alright, so now h4 is possible, obviously, but we can start with c5. And again, someone may ask, why a6? Why do we need a6 to play c5? And my answer to it is that anytime d5 happens, we can, as we have already pawn b5, pawn a6, we can quickly go b5 and open the queen side and play Benko style. After, let's say, d5, we can play already, for instance, b5. And this is the, let's say, idea right now. Why a6 was played. We can always play through b5 and challenge this pawn on c4. For instance, in such a version of Benoni/Benko. So, for instance, analyze c takes b5, and after c takes b5, there are many moves possible. There is knight bd7 possible. There is h4 to start with, but I thought that e6, again, challenging the center from this side would be very nice. And after short castle, I think that it takes d5, h4, chasing this knight away, knight take knight e4. I mean, knight e2 would be very passive, knight e1 would be even more passive, so knight e4 makes a lot of sense. Knight takes e4, and right now, I think that white has to take with the pawn on e4. If knight takes e4, there could be ideas of some, a takes b5, and then maybe some queen b6, and the bishop will be chased away. And if bishop takes e4, bishop is also misplaced there. Let's say ab, knight b5, bishop a6 would be possible. So I thought f takes e4 is sort of must to keep, let's say, sort of balance on b5 square. But after queen b6, king h1, for instance, this, and knight d7, this right now black knight lands on e5. And even though white has extra pawn, I think black has great compensation for his pawn. And in general, if you ask me who would like to play this position with more, I would definitely choose black here. Hey Steve, great, I'm happy that it helped. Alright, so knight d7 and knight d5 comes in, bishop a6 is great position for black, definitely. Still complicated, pawn down, but definitely have great compensation here as black. So this knight g3 is kind of easily, dealt with by this approach. But this approach of h5. So let's see what happens after bishop e3 and b5. Bishop e3, b5, and it seems like white is just winning the pawn right now. C takes b5, a takes b5, and knight takes b5, right? So right now I think at first when I saw this line, first time ever I saw this line, I thought it was just kind of like a joke, that's to give this pawn like this. And then I started analyzing, and I realized that things are far from easy and far from clear. What's the main sort of advantage of sacrificing this pawn is that white's control over the center is not as strong as it was with this pawn on c4, and this gives possibility to sort of challenge the center and fight for the initiative in the center very quickly and much more efficiently than with this pawn on c4. The topic of today's lesson is King's Indian defense, Sämisch system, and from black's perspective, I'm talking about the variation with, here I'll just move back few moves, knight g2, and here a6. This is the line I'm talking about, and this is kind of new modern line. So this is the topic for today. Bishop e3, as I said, b5, c takes b5, a takes b5, knight takes b5, and here black should play c6, and white has two moves, two possibilities: knight bc3 and knight a3. Knight a3 personally to me doesn't look good at all. Like, knight just nicely goes to the edge of the board, and seemingly for no reason. It's not so bad though. The idea is that sometimes this knight from e2 may go to c3, and knight from a3 will go maybe to c4 or something like this. Still, I think that after knight a3, black has very good dynamic play after c5. In general, King's Indian is very dynamic opening. You cannot sort of be happy as playing this with black when you cannot be happy when you play this opening and you play, let's say, passive or not active chess. You have to play very dynamic, very aggressive chess, because otherwise you may just end up like right now, pawn down. Imagine playing this position moves like column moves, like, I don't know, maybe bishop a6, maybe just knight d7, not queen c7, rook b8. While we simply defend pawns and pawn b2, develop the king side, and we'll just retain extra pawn. So this is not the way you play King's Indian. You have to play very dynamic chess, and here black challenges the center with c5 immediately, taking advantage of this knight on a3, which is misplaced. And here I analyze several possibilities for white. Main one being d takes c5, capturing the second pawn. So after, let's say, queen d2, I think black can just play knight c6, and after d5, knight b4. Knight on b4 is pretty good. Bishop a6 can be played next, or most importantly, move like e6, challenging the center again. We got some Benko-like position, and this I think it's just simply great for black. So hello, Nikolai. After knight c6, yeah, so queen d2, I thought this simply not so great. Knight b5 also is possibility, but like, what's the point of playing knight a3, knight b5 back and forth, right? So it doesn't make much sense. Right now black can play, for instance, c takes d4, knight takes d4, and play quickly e5, and after knight b3 play d5, opening the center, challenging white's actually winning control over the center, and possibly maybe playing d4 in the future if it's not taken on d5. Also, another possibility to take on, let's say, if bishop d3, it's possible to take on e4 and challenge somehow this pawn on e4 in those lines. For instance, I played something like this: knight bishop c4, let's say knight queen e7, short castle, and already knight takes e4 could be possible. It is a very unclear position still, obviously. However, I feel like black, would be doing generally great here. So white generally should take on c5, but taking on c5 can be met by queen a5. Can you play King's Indian against any opening like in English or London? You can play it against London. Against English, yeah, but the thing is that white doesn't have to play then d4 and so on. So white can sort of play, let's say, different setups, but you can definitely play almost anything. I think actually on anything. After, let's say, d4 and c4 and knight f3, you can play almost on anything. Just, you know, King's Indian setup with knight f6, g6, bishop g7, short castle, and d6. So it's very flexible. But white doesn't have to move like d4. For instance, if you play English, c4, let's say knight f6, knight c3, g6. You don't have to play, let's say, e4, but you can play maybe g3 or something, and then just play without d4. So this will be a little bit different. Coming back to this line, queen a5. Here there are two moves: queen d2 or bishop d2. After queen d2, I think black is simply nearly better. After queen takes d2, queen takes d2, and now there is knight takes e4 possible. So therefore, what I'm trying to say is that black has very good dynamic opportunities in this opening. After f takes e4, bishop takes b2, knight c2, takes on a1, knight takes a1, rook takes a2, knight c2, and finally takes c5. And because of white king that is so exposed, despite the queens being off the board and lack of development of white pieces, I don't think that black is in any danger here. If anything, black could be only, I think, maybe slightly better, potentially some chances. Also, there are two pawns for the two pawns and a rook for two minor pieces. So let's say, I mean, I don't really think that black takes any serious risk here. Potentially, black could be even better. So queen d2 is not really good. Bishop d2, queen takes c5, rook c1 is logical too, but we can play just queen a7 and just look at this king. Like, king on e1 is not easily gonna be, you know, put to safety on the king side with castle. First of all, this queen on this diagonal covers all all the squares, and pawn on f3 doesn't help as well, right? So I think that black has really good compensation here, even though, you know, white has extra pawn. And again, I would prefer probably playing this with black here. I analyzed a little bit further, but I think here is already kind of clear that black's position is good. So we can ignore knight a3 and we can stick with knight bc3. And after knight bc3, black should play knight bd7. And someone may ask, okay, we just gave the pawn and then we just develop the pieces, knight bd7 and so on. Didn't I just say that? Hold on, chess king. Didn't I just say that, you know, if black plays you know, slowly, like with knight 97 and so on, black will be just pawn down? I did, but like knight bd7 is a move that really prepares action in the center. Right now, let's say after queen d2, we don't go bishop a6, queen 7, rook b8 because it would be too slow. True, but we go for something else. I'll show you this in a moment. All those variations, looks like black is easier to play. Did I do anything wrong? Black is easier to play, true. But we so far analyzed not the best reactions from white's perspective. Right now we are going back to the main line with knight bc3. So this is basically main. Knight bd7, and here, you know, sort of, you know, the main fight happens. But I just want to discuss first sidelines to see that, you know, running away from this line may not be actually really efficient. Everywhere black is doing well, and black is kind of easy play. So knight bd7. And here I analyzed mostly two moves: queen d2, which is typical move in all kind of Sämisch structures, or move knight c1. Idea of knight c1 is to play bishop e2, short castle, and keep this knight, let's say, on the queen side of knight b3. So let's discuss both of them. Let's start with knight c1. And after knight c1, essentially black plays both same thing after both queen d2 and knight c1. Black has to play right now e5. And the point is that without pawn on c4, after trading this pawn from c4, right now we want to play simply d5. We are immediately fighting for the center, and we considering that white king is still, you know, still in castle, still needs some time to castle. We have time to develop some unbalance in the center, some unbalanced tension in the center, which can give us advantage dynamically. For instance, after bishop e2, we can play d5, as I said, And right now there is white has some choice, obviously, and here I would like to actually show one of my games. I mean, I played in this line as black only one game against Serkan Salik, I think it's his name. So it was in July this year, I believe. So in the game happened, it takes e5. Alternatives involve moves like rook, show castle, or knight b3, but both of them lead to similar positions, so I'm just gonna skip them and I focus only what happened in this game. D takes e5, knight takes e5, short castle, and now I play d takes e4. Idea is after queen takes d8, rook takes d8, pawn takes e4. We can see that knight on e5, my knight on e5 is very strong. Bishop on g7 on this diagonal also is well placed, cover, put some pressure potentially on b2 pawn, and the fact that we have the black doesn't have a pawn on a queen side is pretty much nearly irrelevant, because we can use b file to attack the b2 pawn, and bishop from g7 attacked on this diagonal, and white cannot really use this advantage of the extra pawn. So I played knight e4. As you guys can see, I play very dynamically right now. I do not want to waste time for any let's say, because first of all, bishop g5 could be sort of a threat. This could be, so I have to take this one out, this arrow out. Bishop g5 could be sort of a threat. So if I play with like bishop e6, which is of course very natural, but then white would, let's say, would play maybe bishop g5, and I sort of have to go back or knight d7, or maybe sacrifice an exchange. Not something I really like. That's why knight eg4. Instead of just making random bishop move, I start attacking. So bishop g5, and I solve this pin with h6. Bishop takes g4. If bishop would go to h4, I can at least play g5 if I want to. Probably just g5 is good. Like, and then after this I have many moves. One of the, let's say, good moves would be to play move knight e3. Other would be rook d2. I have a number of ideas here in my hand that I can use. I really like knight e3 personally. So this would be not good. Therefore, white had to take on g4. I take on g5. Bishop takes c8, and rook takes c. Rook takes c8. But it was also okay to take this rook. However, I want to control the d file. Probably doesn't quite matter. Maybe still rook dc8. Well, yeah, rook db8 would be a little bit more accurate, but this is also okay. So we got this position, and this is already, I know this is kind of like middle game / even maybe end game, but as it stems from the results from this opening, this line with a6, I really want to go to make a few more moves just to show what kind of ideas here are for black. Knight b3, knight g4, rook a d1, and right now I still play knight d3, takes, rook e1, and knight c4. I use my bishop on g7 to attack those pawns. It's obvious that white do not have any advantage, and black has great initiative, or at least great compensation for this pawn. Black is simply not worse for sure. In the game happened rook e2, and I played g4 just to sort of create some maybe potential weaknesses on the king side. King f2, bishop e5, g3. You guys can see that right now pawn g4 is making pawn h2 a potential weakness. Also, I have access to a free square, so I may consider moves like rook f3 in the future. I didn't do it yet. I at first play a king g7, and here actually I would like to maybe stop talking about this game, because the game was like 42 moves, and this is not already a topic about this opening. In general, what I'm trying to say is that black has always some compensation for this pawn, and then white has to be very careful to defend it. In this game, I managed to win. However, my opponent made some mistakes. But still, those mistakes result from the fact that it's very easy to play for black, while white has to be extremely careful, and some decisions or choices may not be obvious during the game. So I think here black is just doing great. So this is what happens after move knight c1, right? trying to play quickly bishop e2 and short castle. Then white play e5 and d5 with good play. After queen d2, it appears that black also plays e5 and with idea of d5, and because this pawn is not c4, we can simply challenge the center like that. And right now knight g3 is the main move. Knight g3 is the main move. And after knight g3, there are several, apart from knight g3, there are several options here for white. First of all, let's discuss what happens after bishop h6. Do you guys, what would, I know we are watching, what would you play? Because seemingly it's logical to trade those bishops, right? So like if you guys can say in chat, what would you play here with black? Do not take. What do you mean, Steve? Probably bishop a6. No. Bishop a6. Bishop h8 is actually typical idea, of course, but it is not great in this particular moment. Rook e1, I'm not sure what is. Okay, queen e7. No, none of those moves are, you know, I mean, oh, they're possible, but they're by far not the best. Try to find the best move. Queen h6. What do you mean, Steve? I'm confused. Knight b6 is also not a move. DC, you can play DC here. Maybe you meant d5. D5 is possible, I guess, but it's not great. C5 is also, sorry, knight b6 is also not great. C5 also I don't really like. The bishop takes, queen takes on h6. Yes. Yes. Bishop takes h6, queen takes h6 happens. Yes. I mean, I'm saying bishop h6 is the move, but okay. Just to, because there is still something to some lines I would like to show you. So instead of you right now trying to find it, I'll just show you the solution, because there are still lots of interesting stuff going on in this line. So in this position, black can play knight takes e4. Probably on, like, at least you were not saying in chat about this, so I guess that you didn't see it. But the idea is, of course, right now to remove the knight from f6, and right now the idea is to play queen h4, and there is a double attack on h6 and on check on e1. Yes. So knight takes e4 simply actually is very strong. I'm not saying that black is much better here, because probably after knight takes, queen h4, g3, queen takes h6, let's say take, knight d6, white is still holding, I guess, but pair of bishops, much better development, open position, definitely favors black here. So black can play a move like bishop a6 or something, just bring all the pieces to the game, and I think that only black can be better here. So this is one of the typical ideas actually in King's Indian. Whenever this pawn is on f3 in Sämisch, it happens quite often. So that's why I'm bringing it up, because this is a typical King's Indian idea here. So so yeah. So another possibility for white here is to play move d5. And after d5, I think that really d5 also makes sense. Like extra pawn, right, for white, and try to block, lock the center, keep it position closed, which makes sense. However, right now we can again challenge the center with this knight b6, and in all those lines, this missing pawn on the queen side doesn't quite matter. What's most important is the active fight going on in the center. And let's say d takes c6, I was analyzing, knight c4. If queen c1, we can just take, and simply bishop e6. And right now we got the pair of bishops. We can play, even though the pawn on c6 seems like it's kind of strong, we can basically quickly recapture it. Very likely we will recapture it with move like queen c7 or maybe queen a5, rook c8, rook c6. And what's most important? Right now, again, white-black's idea is to play d5 at some point. Open the center, play against white's king, who still is in the center. Still is in the center, this king. And white doesn't have any more dark square bishop, which is definitely also a problem here. Because without dark square bishop, let's say if the position opens, this bishop, black bishop on g7 can become powerful, really, really powerful. So I think black has great compensation here for missing 2 pawns. So yeah, here another move that I was considering here is rook d1, and after rook d1, of course, right now we go with d5. And the point is that after it takes d5, because rook d1 seemingly is natural, right? Idea of rook d1 is to, kind of like take more control over the center and be ready for any action going on in the center. Of course, long castle could be possible, but personally, I find this move nearly suicidal, because going for long castle in such position, open everywhere, everything is open, and on the queen side, it's really, really dangerous and risky. So I wouldn't consider this move as really good for white. First of all, same thing can happen, and d5 and center opens, queen side open is already opened. And king of c1 will be very exposed. King belongs to the king side here, so long castle is not really a thing. Instead, rook d1 sort of also tries to prepare for action in the center. After rook d1, black can play move d5. Yeah, and after d5, it takes d5, knight takes d5, knight takes d5, c takes d5. So here again, white has extra pawn, but white king is in the center, and I think that black has again more than sufficient compensation here. So the white has in general, I would say, 2 candidate moves. One move is knight c3, just try to bring this final bishop from f1 to e2 and then castle short side and finish development and try to prove the pawn, extra pawn that will matter. Or the second approach is to take on e5 and maybe put some pressure on this d5 pawn immediately. So hello, Peter. So let's look at both of them. If d takes e5, knight takes e5, knight c3, let's say. Of course, if queen takes d5, we could always take on a2 if we want to. Let's take on d5, take on a2. Also, there is move like knight c4. There is more than sufficient compensation. Also, we can keep queens on the board, which I think is even the strongest, or maybe not. It's possible. Black is fine in either way. Knight c3, however, makes more sense because it brings the knight to the game finally. Ata wants to take the knight on d5. d4 is not possible yet, and wants to play bishop e2 and short castle, obviously. But right now there are certain issues that the white runs into. Rook e8. King f2, and now queen h4. We basically chase this king away. The problem is that bishop e2 may run into, let's say, some unpleasant tactics. I'm not exactly sure right now what kind of tactics, but I guess that there should be something on the e-file, like for instance involving maybe bishop a6 sometimes even, or maybe just on queen h4. I know, king f2 I analyzed, bishop e2 by some reason I didn't analyze. However, it's pretty logical and natural move. Maybe knight c4. Knight c4 could be possible actually. After queen bishop c4, queen h4. This is kind of like thinking about it right now, and this could be actually really good for black because of the spin. This rook bishop cannot hide, and queen f2 rook takes e3. If queen f2 rook takes e3 simply wins, right? So the king would have to go there, but then we can take the queen on c4, and we have still a very strong initiative here as black. So I think this would be really good. Knight c4, bishop c4, and queen h4. So king f2, and trying to prepare at least that there will be no any pressure on the e-file. King f2 is preparing on this line. Then black can play queen h4, g3, and right now queen f6. And there is certain pressure on f3 square right now. Bishop f4, logical, because if bishop g2, knight c4 again wins. If also or knight g4, after let's say knight bishop e2, knight g4 will win. Just put it on the board. Bishop c4, both knight g4, knight c4 wins. Let's say knight g4, and bishop e2 also knight g4 wins, right? So because of the pin on the f file, and the black wins the bishop on e3. So bishop f4 has to be played, and right now, can you spot the idea here for what would you play here as black? Again, this opening is very dynamic, so you need to just develop the initiative. How would you continue? g5. I think after g5 I'll play knight takes d5. g5 knight takes d5. I'm not taking on g5. g5 knight takes d5. I'll take your queen. No, g4 doesn't. The g5 doesn't force bishop takes d5. After g5, I'm gonna play knight takes d5, right? Maybe repetitive, but like you guys keep saying g5 in chat, so I just want to make sure. Knight g4, d4 suggestion. If knight g4, I'll just take it, I guess, and then see. Okay, then you can play g5, but still I'll just play knight takes d5, and I think I win here. Queen b6 is possible too. d4 also is possible. If d4, I'll probably play just knight e4, and I'll try to sort of hold it together. Queen b6. After queen b6, I'll probably just play bishop e3 and try to sort of also hold it together. But knight takes f3 finally. Yes, knight takes f3 is the solution. Basically, just opening everything. Bishop opening, attacking the king, opening it as quickly as possible. If king takes f3, black can play right now d4, which would be much stronger, or bishop b7 first. Both, I think d4 immediately will be even stronger. So after king takes f3, d4 for instance would just be crushing. I think because this diagonal is open, bishop comes to b7. Next move. So it looks really powerful. And after, but so white cannot take the knight. But after there is move knight takes d5. So after queen knight takes d5, there is move queen e6. And after king takes f3, how would you continue here? Bishop b7 is possible, but okay. Any other suggestions? Bishop b7 is possible, but it's I'll play probably. I'll be probably sorry. Probably I'll be able to kind of like hold it here. However, queen e4 is also like logical, but in my opinion, by far the best, because just kind of like from theoretical perspective, bishop on c8 is not a bad piece. Can support something maybe queen g4, maybe queen e4, bishop g4 or something like this, right? But we can just collect this pawn. And look, if ever this king goes to f2 or something, we can play rook takes b2, and we pin on the second rank. And I think that after rook takes a2, basically preparing everything, because bishop b7 is an idea, queen e4 is an idea, but rook a on a2 improves also the rook and prepares taking on b2, chasing this queen away and further attacking white king. And I think after rook takes a2, the game is nearly over, because this king is so weak, and I think that black has overwhelming initiative, and I don't see how white would be able to defend here. It's hard to actually come with the move here for white, because everything is met with something. So I think that's pretty much game over right now. But all your ideas are valid that you were suggesting, bishop b7, queen e4, and so on. The thing is, we can start with rook a2 and keep all our ideas, and suddenly white has pretty much no moves, and then we can employ those ideas with even more strength. So yeah, this is basically it. Suddenly black develops such a quick initiative in the center, so okay, let me answer that. Queen g3, queen f6, bishop f4. What if queen e4 and rook takes? Okay, no choice. King f2, you take. Okay, right now I have first of all bishop g2. Yes, it wins, but like I'm gonna win your queen, for instance. This and rook h1, for instance. And just imagine having already your rook on a2. You would be able to, let's say, always play rook takes b2, right? So all those lines would be yes, white is much better here. Here white is much better. So therefore I'm not playing queen e4, but instead here of queen e4, rook takes a2, right? Because after queen e4, queen h1, bishop g2, white is much better. Yes, here white is much better, as Mario Cesar points out. So yeah. Alright, let's move to the next line, because this is a perfect actually example of like what happens when white simply, you know, tries to capture the pawn and try to prevent, let's say, black central play, and anyway the central play happens, and suddenly white king remains in the center and is getting nearly checkmated in move number 20. So better, in my opinion, would be knight c3, but knight c3, here we can play just rook e8 and king f2, and this is a little bit better approach here by white, because at least black knight is still on d7, not on e5, right? So this is very similar, but black knight is not as active. Here, however, we can play e4, and here in such position, bishop b2, let's say queen h4, king g1 analyze, and bishop a6, for instance. And here I think that black in general has very good compensation. Here I think that black has in general very good compensation for the pawn, especially that king on g1 is simply, you know, not gonna castle. Is not gonna castle. Cannot castle. Is, you know, is weak, and potentially black can develop some initiative against this king, right? So this is better for white than you know, previous line where black is winning with this rook a2 line. However, still I don't think that black has any problems here. I think black is doing great and potentially can even be better here. One thing for sure, it's definitely way easier to play this position as black because of simple development and activity, rather than with white with king on g1 and rook on h1 that are completely misplaced, right? So so therefore rook d1 also is not a great idea here for white. So finally knight g3 I was thinking could be played here. Knight g3 and trying to sort of strengthen the center on e4, anticipating also d5, because right now knight from g3 will be supporting e4 square better. But knight from g3 is all knight on g3 also doesn't have bright future in terms of, you know, it doesn't really go to f5 or h5 or anywhere. It just does kind of like defensive tasks. So yeah, it also has some drawbacks. It's a good move, but you know, not without drawbacks. So after knight g3, and here I think black has two approaches possible. I really like though d5 again. d5 is, in my opinion, by far what the best choice here for black. Another alternative would be e takes d4, and after bishop takes d4, knight c5. And again, we just play for initiative. Bringing knight to e6, and again try to play with d5, bishop e3 and d5, for instance. Of course, move like bishop f6, queen f6 would just, and queen d6 would be too dangerous. Would give you with such powerful bishop on g7. Black always will have great compensation here. Rook d8 is possible. I don't know, move like queen h4 is possible. There are many possibilities here for black, and I think that black is doing simply great here. And most importantly, white king is still in the center on e1, so it cannot be good for white. So bishop e3 and then d5, and similar stuff happens. And probably here white can maintain equality by simply taking everything, and here black doesn't have anything better than this and rook a2 and capture on b2 and such equal position. But you know sometimes equal positions happen, right? But on the other hand, even if they happen, as black we shouldn't be too worried about, because as black we always have to first equalize and then play for kind of like then try to prove our advantage, or like prove some advantage, so that that we have good chances to win. Doesn't mean that we cannot play for a draw in move number 1. I'm not talking about this, but first step is to equalize, and then after equalizing play for a win. Because it's unlikely that, I mean, of course it can happen, but like the player with white will make, with correct play, suddenly that there will be a possibility to play for a win from like very quickly from the beginning of the game, unless of course the blunders happen. Then of course it's possible, right? But we are assuming right now perfect play from white as well. With perfect play from white, we cannot expect to be better as black after the opening. That's what I'm trying to say. So this is one possibility here, and second possibility after knight g3 is to play simply again d5. And I would just stick with d5 because it's just so natural to play d5. And yeah, like for instance, if bishop e2, black can play just h5. This idea of knight on g3, idea of h5 is very typical in all sort of King's Indian positions. Especially in this Sämisch variation in King's Indian. After d takes e5, knight takes e5, bishop e2, again h5. So we could basically transpose from the previous line. Short castle, and right now h4, knight h1. So finally, let's look at this position. White castled, but black is actually controlling the center better than white. Knight on e5, pawn on d5. White has pawn on knight on h1, which is very passive. Despite the fact that white already castled, there is still possibility for black to develop some initiative against white king with move like h3, for instance. So this king is not still completely safe. The black still has some initiative that can pose lots of practical problems. I'm not saying black is better. I'm not saying at all that black is better, but the position is very complicated. It's very unclear. But if you are looking for a line that offers very good chances and to play for a win with black and induces some mistakes from opponent, because just look, guys, how many mistakes we already black. Sure, see you, Pepin. Sure, Pipenchuk. I will see you next time. Just look how many mistakes what could have made already in this game, like so much, right? And only with best play, like bringing, you know, this final knight to h1, and white, you know, manages to keep equality. So this just shows that the position is extremely complicated, and it is not easy to play with this position with white. So if you're looking for a line to play for a win, I would in Sämisch variation King's Indian, I would suggest 6a6 and then play for b5, sacrifice a pawn, and fight for a center, and basically just whatever I'm talking in here. For instance, right now h takes g6, sorry, g2, king takes g2, bishop e6, and right now I think, yeah, pawn down, true, but look at this perfect development of pieces. And weak king on g2, even though the castle still is exposed. And I think simply black is doing great here. So just to sum it up, because another lecture, my lecture, is coming, and I think right now fortunately I have to stop talking about it. I could talk longer, of course, but I think we are running out of time on this Grandmaster's choice. Just to sum it up, I think that this line in King's Indian Sämisch variation a6, just to bring it up in the end, this position, knight g2 and a6, I think it's a very interesting and sharp line, which gives black good chances to fight for the initiative. Not saying that this is better for black, for sure it's not better, but it definitely gives white some food for thought, and I think that the chance that white player with white makes a mistake here, not being ready for this line, is quite substantial. So if you want to surprise your opponent and get great fighting and attacking position with lots of dynamics, play 6a6 here. So that's all from me for now, again, about King's Indian, and I'll be back very soon with next lesson, which will be games of the week. So stay tuned, and I'll see you soon. Tracy, do I once again?